welcome to my reading wrap up. Today I'm going to talk about all of the books I read in February. I read 3 books in total and I wanted to update you guys on my new kind of ranking system. I feel like I give books too high of a rating and end up giving a load of books just 5 stars. In fairness, a lot of the books I've read this year so far have been highly anticipated by me, so when the book is anyway decent and highly anticipated, I kind of give it a high rating. So I've decided to break my reviews into different categories and then average it out. For example, when I read a fantasy book, I'm going to consider and rate the characters, my expectations, the series as a whole, the predictability, and that could be a good or a bad thing, magic system, and then if there's romance in the book, the romantic subplot. I'm going to rate each of those things out of 5 when I'm doing my ratings and then average that out, and that'll actually be my final book rating. There's more nuance to my books now, like they have different scores. They're not all just like simple 5-star or a simple 4-star. It's now the full range of decimal points. I'm gonna try this out for now because I feel like this may help me actually decide, hey, I like this book more than this one, and actually rank how I feel about the books. Let's just get into the reviews. Thank you for bearing with that. The first book I read in February was actually Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is a YA fantasy series with a bit of romance, and I gave it 4.3 stars. This is actually the first book in the sequel series to Caraval, which I've also read and reviewed. It is not necessary to read Caraval before you jump into this series. I just want to put that out there. Caraval kind of introduces you to the world, the magic, and a few of the characters, and you get a bit of a feel for the writing. And then Once Upon a Broken Heart takes off from there. So it isn't really necessary, but I definitely do recommend reading Caraval first, and that series as a whole first. It's only 3 books, so it's not too much of a commitment. But if you don't really care about, say, spoilers, because this book starts a little bit before the end of Finale, the last Caraval book, so they really do overlap. But if you don't care about spoilers for Caraval, or if you don't like it, then it is totally fine to jump straight in with this. I actually really enjoyed Caraval and the whole series, which felt like a controversial opinion online. I don't know, a lot of creators who I enjoy really didn't like it, and so I was a bit put off whenever I heard Caraval being spoken about. It was spoken about as like this series' necessary burden. The vibe online was that you have to suffer through Caraval to get to Once Upon a Broken Heart, but it's so worth it once you get to Once Upon a Broken Heart, that series. So keep going through Caraval, whereas I really enjoyed Caraval. But anyways, I also loved Once Upon a Broken Heart. This story, we mostly follow Evangeline. The book actually opens up with Evangeline seeking out the Temple of the Prince of Hearts. A tiny bit of background for the world and universe, magic, all the rest, is that there are these kind of beings called Fates, F-A-T-E-S. No, as in faith. And the Fates are basically like gods, just not quite. They do walk the earth. God-like, I suppose. They have magic, but they're also really inhumane. They don't have human emotion the same way that humans do. And they can be cruel and cold and mischievous. Some are downright evil. Prince of Hearts is one of these Fates. He's also known as Jax to us. Evangeline seeks him out because the man she loves is about to marry her stepsister. So pretty messy. Basically, she wants Jax, the Prince of Hearts, to stop the wedding going ahead. And, you know, she's convinced that the man she loves is under a spell. So she's like, I'll counteract it with a spell of my own. Go to this fate. Not a good idea. Jax solves the problem in the most Fate Jax-ish way. And in return, Evangeline promises 3 kisses. Jax will basically appear and be like, kiss that person, kiss that person, kiss that person 3 times. The rest of this book really is Evangeline dealing with the fallout from making this deal with the Prince of Hearts. And she even travels to another like isle. Is it an isle realm? And she still can't escape him. The story takes off from there. What I really love about this book is Stephanie Garber's writing. Something about her writing style has always spoken to me. It's what made me enjoy Caraval so much. And the main way I can probably describe her writing style is whimsical. It really does have that fairy tale side to it. I love the cameos from the other characters, and we kind of get a look in at where they are now and how the months post end of book treated them. I quite like Evangeline herself as a character. She is this hopeless romantic. Her parents were ridiculously in love her whole life, so she saw them as the blueprint. She's definitely this naive character, a bit trusting, but she does her best to run around and deal with her bad decisions. She's classic main character. I do quite like her, and I quite liked having a new character to see the world through. If you've read Caraval, you know all about Jax, and he is who he is. And it's quite fun to see a character like him causing literal mayhem at all times. He's a nice lead to play opposite Evangeline, especially them being so different in certain ways. It took about halfway into the book for me to really buy into the romantic subplot or really care. Once it did click, I was full supporter. It went from 0 to 100 real quick, and I can't even tell you what part it was that I was suddenly invested. I was like, yep, okay, I'm here now. But I really am rooting for this romantic plot. The main criticism I see online about this book is that it is very juvenile, and to that I say, yeah, fair. Very fair. Stephanie Garber so far releases and writes YA books, and they really are YA. People who don't enjoy YA as much won't enjoy it that much. I recommend this to people who enjoyed Caraval. I do think that Garber's writing has definitely improved as time has gone on and as she's written more books, so that's lovely to see. And people who don't enjoy YA, this one is not for you. Next, I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is a sports romance, and I gave it 4.9 stars. This is your classic Ali Hazelwood book. We have Scarlett, who is a diver at Stanford. She is recovering from a serious injury, and at the start of this book, she is really struggling with getting back into diving, and in particular, an inward dive. Inward dive was mentioned so many times in this book that I actually Googled it to see what it looked like, see what all this fuss was about. Yeah, that looks pretty hard. The idea of diving is terrifying to me, so fair play, Scarlett, for even trying. Scarlett is fairly shy, quiet, nervous, I suppose, like all of those adjectives. She's never had a whole load of friends, and her life has usually been taken over by diving. Another important member of this diving team is Penelope. Throughout this book, we see Penelope and Scarlett get closer as friends. Penelope is like the closest Scarlett has ever had to a best friend, and we see that build throughout the book. There is one kind of roadblock in this friendship, and that is Lucas, who is Penelope's long-term boyfriend. Lucas is on the swim team at Stanford, and he's won Olympic medals. He's best at his thing. So they are crossing paths a good bit. They share the pool. At the beginning of this book, we actually get Penelope breaking up with Lucas because they are not sexually compatible. However, Lucas and Scarlett are. This leads to Scarlett and Lucas starting up a physical relationship, and we see it develop from there. Other parts of this plot have to do with Scarlett getting back into her diving, going to big competitions all over the country, and trying to qualify for the next Olympic Games. That's kind of the non-romance half, the sports half. This brings me to an important note about this book. This book, at its core, is about two consenting adults exploring kink in their relationship. This book is for adults. Ali Hazelwood writes adult romance books. In this book in particular, we see the characters express interest and curiosity in BDSM, and we see them navigate that in their relationship and that dynamic. Obviously, if that is not something you want to read about, this book is not for you. What I really enjoyed about this book is that it is full of sexual themes, but not once are they demonized. Consensual sex between two adults should not be taboo or controversial. Hazelwood showing these characters in a healthy sexual relationship is such a good example to show in your book. Something I was a little bit worried about when it came to books with BDSM style themes and all of that stuff was the potential for a scene where a character crosses the other's boundaries or something like this. I feel like in these kind of books, that tends to be written in as the conflict for the third act breakup, and I am happy to report that is not the case in this book. There is no crossing of boundaries here. Even when the characters are really mad at each other, not once do they overstep. Boundaries are maintained and respected. There were a lot of opinions out there when this book came out. If you don't like kinky books, don't read them. Simple. Hazelwood was incredibly open about the topics in this book, both on her social media, like everywhere, but also in the author's note before the book begins. This really may not be for everyone, and that's totally okay, but I did love it. Finally, I read Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is a romantasy, and I gave it 4.1 stars. This is the third book in the Fourth Wing series, the Empyrean series. I believe there's going to be at least 2 more eventually, I think. I know that Yarros is taking a bit of a break from writing to rest, and I believe there's health issues involved. I don't want to speak on that too much, obviously, because I'm not informed. Fourth Wing is not done. The series is still going. I heard some people really stressed online thinking this was the end. No, there's gonna be more, just maybe not next year or the year after, you never know. We gotta learn to wait for our dragon books. Onyx Storm picks up pretty much where Iron Flame left off, like about. I'll do my best to stay spoiler free, but that does get quite difficult when it comes to the third book in a series, but I will do my best. It just means that my explanations tend to be shorter, and I always feel bad because I feel like I don't give Fourth Wing a lot of discussion space when I talk about it. It is purely because I'm being so cautious not to ruin anyone else's experience, especially if they haven't read the first or second one yet. I don't want to ruin that for other people. I'll just give you my thoughts. In this one, for reasons I probably won't really get into, we see Violet flying off the continent. There's more land, by the way. I wasn't aware of that before this book, but that could be on me. In search of stuff. They're basically these little islands away from the continent. And these islands are all really different. They worship a different god. Like they have, what's a patron god, if you think of it like that? She's flying with a little horde of dragons and riders to do stuff. So we get a look into like other cultures within this book and see how different each of the little isles are. And by the way, these isles don't have magic. It's actually once you leave the continent, once they fly off, magic just stops. The dragons can still fly. It's kind of like a runner running better with caffeine in their system, for example. If you take caffeine off them, they can still run, but they will run better with the caffeine. That's kind of how the dragons are. So they can still fly and do their thing because they have the muscle and the wings, but magic does kind of help them, and so they are a bit weak. But also the riders are like cut off mentally from their dragon. The dragons are just out of sorts. Everyone is upset. It's a whole thing. We also have Xaden dealing with the developments from the end of Iron Flames. If you know, you know. It's a pretty big deal what's going on with him, and it's also quite intriguing to see where this will go and how it develops further beyond this book. I don't think I can say much else on the plot in general, but let's talk about what I actually liked about this book. This book, and especially the ending, really hit the way the second one should have, or how other people believe the second one hit, in my opinion. There was oomph to this one, thank God. I enjoyed it way more than Iron Flame. The stakes felt higher and a bit more personal, which I like. It moved better than Iron Flame. It felt less stilted. The pacing felt better. I really liked the other isles and finding out what gods they support or worship. I liked the visuals of the isles and how different they were from each other and from the continent. I liked the drama of everything that would happen on these isles. This expansion of the world and the world building, the lore, I think was much needed. I liked the allusions to the questions about Violet's origins, and there's especially one or two characters that throw hints at us and make us actually think about Violet for the first time ever. No, I'm kidding. That actually makes us pull into question, why is she how she is? I liked it. I liked the questions because I never thought about it myself. Not once did I go, oh, there's a reason to that. I thought it was just main character syndrome. There was much less pointless miscommunication between Xaden and Violet, which I really appreciate. It seems they finally got their priorities in order. It was getting on my nerves in Iron Flame, the fighting. There were also less pointless, explicit sex scenes in this one than that one, which I also prefer. Some people won't. Some people, you know, really like the romance, half of the romantasy, which I totally get. If you don't like a big cast of characters, maybe sit this one out, or this series in general out, because I was feeling it when I came to this one. Sometimes it does feel like Yaros is just piling more characters on because she doesn't want to kill the main people, so she's like, throw this character in and blow them up 2 chapters later, something like that. Kind of use them as narrative fodder, if you will. If any of you can tell me Ridoc or IDOC, whatever his name is, Ridoc. Can you tell me his surname without checking the book? I can't. So when they were calling him by his surname, I was a bit like, wait, who? Oh yeah. In fairness to Yaros, there is a little list here in the front of the book with who's who their dragon is, and their power. I'm gonna need like a whole glossary of all of these random side characters because I can remember maybe the main crew and that's it. Thing is, I know that a big cast of characters can be done well. Characters can be distinguished from each other really well because Cassandra Clare has a whole series where she introduced, I'd say, nearly 10 main characters. She threw them in there. If you ask me about any of them, I could tell you who they are and who their lineage is, like what they look like. She handles big cast of characters really well and makes them so distinct. Whereas I think Yaros seems to just throw new characters in squad at a time and just expect me to remember who anyone is. It's not happening. It's really not happening. So I kind of go along with vibes. See, that's the thing. It doesn't really annoy me that much though, because I'm here for vibes, not perfect book. So it's okay for me, but a lot of people, it's not okay for them. So just be aware if you don't like big cast of characters that are kind of confusing. All in all, I enjoyed this one way more than I enjoyed Iron Flame. The best parts of this book were the bits that were way different than the second book. Take that how you will. I still maintain that I do like this series. I will keep reading it, of course. However, it just isn't my favorite romantasy. But there's nothing wrong with that. And there we go. There's all of the books I read in February. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, here's another one that YouTube thinks you will enjoy. And I will see you next time.